Ever wondered what an emergency fund is? Trying to figure out what your emergency could be and how big your fund should be? Well, in today's video, I'm going to cover everything on emergency funds and why you should build one of your own. Stay tuned. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Stan and today we'll be talking about emergency funds. So we'll cover things like what it is, how you can start one, what classifies as an emergency, how big your fund should be, and just a few tricks and tips that you can use to help yourself along the way. So to kick off, what is an emergency fund? So all an emergency fund is basically a pot of money set aside for an emergency. So as the name suggests, an emergency fund, a fund for an emergency. So for example, if you lose your job or there's an unexpected bill or an unexpected cost in your life, that fund will essentially cover that whilst you get back up on your feet. So for example, if you lose your job and I don't know, until you find a new one, that fund will essentially keep you going, keep you ticking, or get your bills paid, and it's like it will basically provide a safety net. But what we'll cover today is 4 points on how to decide how big it should be and what you should do along the way of your emergency fund. So let's get into it. So step one is to decide how much money you actually need. So you need to look back at your expenses and decide how much you spend every single month. This is on your bills, on your rent, your car, whatever it could be, all your expenses in 1 month. So if we call it £1,000 every month, I'd recommend you save up for 3 months worth of outgoings. So this would mean you need £3,000 saved up. And it doesn't matter how sort of long you take, because every little helps. And what I mean is, even if it takes you a long time to build up an emergency fund, a small emergency fund is better than no emergency fund. So if you do need to take your time, do so, but start building that habit and start covering yourself, because God forbid, say if you do lose your job or if something does go wrong, you are covering yourself, and until you find that new job, your emergency fund will essentially keep you going, that safety net. And if you go into the screen now, some of the bills that people have experienced and how much they cost is on the screen. So for example, if you look at, I don't know, a car repair or replacement, 29% of people experience this in the last 12 months, and the average cost is £1,300. So I know, for example, if you drive a newer car or whatever, you might not necessarily expect that, but if you do have an older car, do bear that in mind, where that unexpected cost might come along at some point. Other things include sort of a new washing machine, anything else like that, mobile phone breakdown, sort of a new phone, whatever it could be. Just bear that in mind and have that money ready. So these expenses and the size of these expenses might seem daunting at first, which is why it's so important that you do start building that emergency fund for the worst case scenario. So step number 2 is to start saving. So based on how much you've decided you need, this is where you start chipping away at that value and start building your fund. So first thing I'd recommend is you open a separate savings account and you sort of put your money there and sort of keep it separate, build a bit of interest on that. And I'd also recommend you set up a standing order. So this is where basically you set up a payment from your normal account into your savings account, and it's done automatically. So for example, if you get paid on the 1st of every single month, you set up a standing order of, say, I don't know, £50, and on that first, when you get paid, £50 will go from that account to your savings account, to your emergency fund, and then at least you're then not tempted to spend that money or use it elsewhere. So again, if we go onto the screen, there are some good accounts that you can use for this. So I have a dedicated video on this already, but if we look at easy access accounts, what this means is that you can take your money out whenever you like, and this is what you want for an emergency fund, because if you need your money now, then you want to be able to access your money now. So the returns you're looking at are mostly sort of your Atom Bank and Aldermore rate of 0.5%, maybe 0.56. There are a few apps and online services available where, for example, Virgin Money Current Account allows you to, well, gives you 2% interest, but the maximum deposit is £1,000, so you're only getting 2% on that £1,000. So it might be a good start, but that's up to you. And then if we look at the notice accounts, so for example, like I mentioned Moneybox a few weeks ago, because you're holding money somewhere and you're giving them a notice, so for example for Moneybox you need 95 days notice, so you are getting that bit extra interest of 0.6%, But from the day you say, oh, I need this money, you'll have to wait, 3 months until you actually get that money. So I'd recommend having an easy access account because it allows you to dip in and out of it whenever you like. And remember, saving smaller, regular amounts is better than saving bigger chunks of money less often. So I find it easier of putting away, say, £20 a week, or even say, I don't know, £50 a month, than waiting 6 months and think, oh, I've got a bit of money left over, let's put away £400. Because you feel that hit a lot more. So start small and remember that every little helps, every bit makes a difference. And then always review your bills. So for example, once every few months, review your, say, gas and electricity bills, because you can save yourself a lot of money in a year. So for example, I read the other day that someone was reviewing it every, say, I think it was every 3 months, and they've saved themselves over £300 in a year. So again, if you can save yourself money somewhere, then you can put it away into your emergency fund. And another tip is, if you are starting out or if you are struggling, don't be afraid to ask for help. And what I mean is, don't be afraid to ask, say, for benefits. If you are struggling with money and you can't cope, or if you're, again, basically if you are struggling, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's nothing to be ashamed of. If you need that help, ask, because if they can provide some financial support, why not? Step number 3, this is where you want to make a clear plan. So whether you're building an emergency fund for yourself or a joint one, say, with your partner or whoever else, you want to have a plan and a quite strict set of rules of what an emergency is and what isn't. So for example, you might say job loss is an emergency. Well, it's an emergency, a medical bill, an unexpected cost. And for example, you say, okay, a washing machine or things like that. And you want to be quite strict with that, because it will stop you from just going into the emergency fund every time you, I don't know, want to buy a new pair of trainers or a new phone comes out and you just fancy the look of it. So you need to be really strict with yourself, and it comes to some self-discipline where you need to decide of what is an emergency, what isn't, and when can I actually go into that emergency fund. And step number 4 is to review it. You review your emergency fund and to keep it topped up. So what I mean by that is, if your expenses increase, you want to increase your emergency fund with that. So if they increase to £2,000 a month, you want to make sure you save up at least £6,000 to cover yourself for 3 months in your emergency fund. And my other point is that if you do spend money from that emergency fund, so if an unexpected expense does come up and you say, I don't know, take out £700 from it, once you're back on your feet and once sort of you've gone through that expense, do make sure you top it back up to the original amount so you have that safety net yet again. And do review and always come back to how much you are saving, because if you know you want to save up £3,000 and you're sort of getting closer to that amount, it's like a good psychological thing. It'll keep you motivated, it'll keep you thinking, well, I'm almost there with my emergency fund, let me sort of almost get across the finish line, so you're there, and then you can focus on saving elsewhere or investing or wherever else you want to put your money. So to summarize, an emergency fund is a pot of money that allows you to get through a worst case scenario situation in terms of your expenses. I recommend you save up for at least 3 months worth of those expenses. And what I'll do is I'll pop a link in the description section where you can go and work out how much you need based on your expenses. So it's a very simple calculator. It asks some very basic questions like how much is your rent, how much you spend on food a month, little questions like that. And then it'll work out how much you need to save based on those expenses. And lastly, all I'll say is basically make sure you do have one and you always review it. So once you do build that, once you have built up that emergency fund, make sure you keep it topped up and make sure you always review it. So again, like I said earlier, if your expenses go up, make sure emergency fund goes up as well. But that's it from me for today. If you do have any questions on emergency funds, or if you'd like to see any other types of videos, do let me know in the comment section below. Consider liking and subscribing to my channel, and thank you very much for watching as always. And remember, save money so that one day that money can save you. I'll see you in the next video.